Alright, Scott, so out of the blue, we're going beyond blue.
For a whole lot more videos like this one, check out our channel, give us a like, and subscribe.
Alright, Scott, so we got hands-on with a really interesting game, an educational game at that, and this is from Eline Media. These guys are known to do these kinds of games, but this is the first time I got my hands on anything like this, dude. So, kind of diving into this one, you're pretty much set out in the ocean exploring.
Yeah, very nice. Diving in is just the right description because you follow a series of dives in a couple different locations throughout the ocean, and you're scanning a lot of animals and documenting them and putting forth this narrative that's told to you as you go. But it's a heavy slant on the educational. When you scan these animals, they get added to an encyclopedia of sorts, and you can review all that later on.
Yeah, man, and like you said, dude, this whole game is pretty much scanning different types of species, and then it's not just scanning it once. Some of these fish, you have to scan 42 of them to fully unlock the entirety of their encyclopedia. So there is a bit of a grind to this game, but you're kind of just set out swimming, going from checkpoint to checkpoint, and usually each checkpoint is this kind of camera point, and it camera/sonar thing where you're going out and scanning for the sperm whales or the humpback whales or the orcas, and you're kind of just tracking different families down throughout this story.
Yeah, you're using real oceanographer kind of equipment to ping and track and listen to these whales and dolphins and such, even to the point where your kind of side characters develop a way of communicating back to the whales, which is a real experiment that was carried out in the early 2000s. It's really interesting that they kind of go with this real world base towards the game, and it is an educational slant, but they want you to kind of explore at your own leisure, and I get a very strong casual sense from this game where you're just meant to slowly acquire all the information, because like you said, sometimes to finish an animal it's 42 scans. That is a real number to complete its entire entry. Now that might not appeal to everybody, but I'm an achievement hunter for one, so that's something that keeps me in the game a little bit longer, and you do learn real facts from it. It's pretty interesting.
And a nice touch that they have is if you end up missing, some of the fish from the previous areas, you actually get the ability to revisit any of the areas at any time once you've completed the game. So that was I was a little bit worried because partway through I was like, uh-oh, I might have missed a couple things. But thankfully they give you that kind of sort of grace.
Yeah, and there is a lot of different areas as well. There's things from just more open water kind of experiences to more of a reef type environment that's very winding, even at the floor with some vents and things like that. You explore a lot of really cool different aspects to the ocean that maybe you wouldn't think about unless you were somebody who was super into this.
Dude, one of the most fascinating things I learned about through this game is immortal jellyfish. There are jellyfish that we don't even know how long they've been alive because they have this sort of regenerative ability where they get to a certain age and they can kind of bring back their life to like an infant stage almost. It's, that's just one of the many things that I learned. And after you complete each mission or dive, they call it, you unlock a new set of videos. And there's a good chunk, like it's probably about a half an hour long worth of 1 to 2 to 3 minute long videos, and they're all just really well done, interviewing very reputable people from National Geographic and other marine biologists, and you learn about some of these people and their real life stories. It's incredible, man.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of research and a lot of work put behind this. There's a lot of big name studios that definitely kind of lended a hand to some of the research here, and this is a work of many, many people coming together.
Yeah, it was truly incredible and inspiring.
So we are working this year on a new project to deploy tags on orcas. we need to learn more about the diet and how they use the habitat. So by deploying those tags, we get the information we need. It is the least invasive method. It is suction cups. So it is not a scratch on the whale afterwards, which is something we really like.
In the deep sea, we use these like robotic claws from the oil and gas industry that gets you the sample, but this is so archaic. So we've been designing something called squishy robot fingers, which are ways to be gentle when we study the deep sea.
So one of the interesting things about this game is that it puts you next to a lot of these really big ocean creatures. The whales give you a scale of just how tiny people are, or just how massive some of their variants can be. Going up next to these things, you can kind of see that sometimes the graphics aren't necessarily the strongest part of this game, but it is kind of, it definitely does the job, and it's not led to be the most shiniest thing. It definitely gets across the idea that these creatures are very lively and very expressive.
Yeah, man, they show a lot of character in all these creatures. You know, when you see them at different points throughout the game, they're having different sorts of behavior, and it's really cool. As you scan them, you actually get to learn about them more. It's really quite interesting. And unfortunately, there was just kind of one thing that kind of hindered my experience a little bit. I was having some frame rate issues, but it wasn't a total, you know, I wouldn't say it took away from the whole game, but it was maybe something that maybe just needs to be optimized. Even when being, you know, out of mission when you're on your ship, I was running at less than 30 FPS.
Yeah, that's strange. Now, we are on different models, I believe, of Xbox, so maybe there's something to that, but I didn't necessarily have all the same issues. I did have some frame rate, especially in the sub, now that you mention it. Going in and out of that, maybe there's a load screen happening that we're just quite not aware of. Something's up with that.
Yeah, it's quite possible. And kind of we'll touch briefly onto the ship. You know, when you're out of missions, I thought they did a pretty cool job with this. I spent a good half an hour kind of just sifting through their music, and they actually have a really solid playlist. And it kind of expands as you do more missions. And again, like some of them are just whale sounds, and it's just really peaceful and it just really sets the mood for this whole entire game.
Yeah, I feel like you're getting a bit of a soundtrack pick from somebody's personal mix. Somebody that has to do with this oceanographer work, and perhaps somebody that maybe they tied the story more closely to. We're not exactly sure at this moment if it's entirely a work of fiction or based on some real person's life. They certainly do allude to real people in the game several times, and a lot of the characters you speak to from the submarine produce a lot of character drama and advance a story that is totally secondary to the Aqua, you know, kind of experience.
Yeah, and they did a really good job to kind of actually just getting you to think. And they have a couple dialogue options, kind of how you just react to certain things that they say. But all in all, it really hit me right in the good spot, man. This whole game from start to finish.
Hey, did you show Nana my live stream tonight?
School's great, thanks for asking.
You asked me not to ask.
Much appreciated.
Hey, check this out.
No way. Is that a baby whale?
Mm-hmm. And her very, very proud mother. She delivered early.
That's some view. You're really living the dream.
Thanks.
So Nate, that was a deep dive in Beyond Blue. Now, that was a lot of information to take in, and it was a lot more casual than maybe we were expecting, but all in all, I had a really good time. I think this game achieves what it set out to do, and although it's not the most flashy, exciting game, if you're into oceanography, you're definitely gonna love something like this. I want to give this an 8 out of 10.
Well, dude, I'm right there with you. I loved the educational side of it. The gameplay is just very casual and inspiring. The story that they created within the game, as well as the ocean side story, everything jived with me. 8 for me, man. A combination of exploration and a wealth of oceanography for those gamers with a passion for life under the sea.
First time I was in a submarine, I saw that life down there and 50 new questions popped into my brain that wouldn't have come up because it was this immersive experience and I just felt it.
When you're in a submarine and you're looking at these magical environments, you're overwhelmed by this sense of wonder. You're humbled by this feeling of there's so much I don't know about the world, and you're stimulated to figure out how this all works together.
I'm a marine biologist. I'm someone who studies the ocean from as many angles as I can.
When my kids ask me what I do for a living, I tell them that I'm an explorer. I'm an aquanaut. I dive down to the bottom of the ocean and I see things that people have never seen before. How lucky am I to be able to share this amazing habitat with the rest of the world?